And I'm District 9, Georgine Adams, and Chair of the EMC, and cover the Kahala, Waimea area. And it looks like the entire board is here. We're full scale at 9 people, so pretty exciting. And one of the things I want to try, since there are 9 people to keep track of, I was wondering if you want to speak, so I can recognize you, because I drive Peter and I'm sure that people on the phone crazy because I don't say people's name before they talk. If you look at the string of icons, there's one called reactions. And in the reactions, there's a raise your hand icon, and it shows up in the corner of your picture. And then if I see people who want to speak, then I can recognize you and you can speak, instead of people tumbling over each other or losing track of who's speaking at the time, for those who aren't seeing the video. So has everybody found where their raise their hand icon is? If you're on an iPad, I think
No,
it's at the top.
I don't, I'm using my phone. I don't see it.
Oh, your phone, I have no idea what they do on a phone.
I had to use the browser version. It doesn't look like it has that either.
Oh my God.
Well, it was a try. Otherwise, just wave your hand and I'll try and make sure that I catch you. I'm going
I
to
don't-
look at my hand now.
I don't think I've got video.
You don't have video at all?
Wait a minute.
The
No,
other
I get a
thing
little
that,
sign here that says, it says this, I can't receive video at this time.
Okay.
okay, the
No,
other
we're
thing that
glad-
commissioners should
Native.
do for the record is just state your name before you begin talking, and that way we know who it is.
Thank you.
Works for me.
All right, I need a motion to accept the minutes from March 24th.
So moved, Rick Gaffney.
A second?
I second Melissa.
John
Carter.
Olson.
We'll take Melissa. Any discussion, corrections on the minutes?
I'll be ready to race right out when 9:40. So if we still get, yeah, we still have a few minutes.
Could, I don't know if they can mute. Okay. Not seeing any. All of in favor of approving the motion, the minutes?
Aye.
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 Vote, any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are accepted. Statement from the chair, like I said, yay, we're at full speed. I don't think it's been years since we've had 9 commissioners. And so I'd like to have them introduce themselves and give a little background. We'll try to catch you up on who we are as we go along. I did send them the list of priorities each of us had picked out, so they would have a feel for what our passions are. But let's first hear from where you disappeared. Elise, give us a little
Sure.
back.
Hi, everybody. My name's Elise Robinson. I've lived on the Big Island since 2004, originally from Honolulu, and I've always been very active in the community, from Rotary Clubs, now the Zonta Club of Hilo, and I suppose that volunteering has always been a part of my life, and I look forward to contributing what I can and being part of this community. I think it's very important to address the issues that you are all responsible for. So happy to be here, and I look forward to hitting the ground running. Thanks.
One of the attributes that I hope we can all take advantage of is that Elise's background is economics and finance. So yay.
Yes.
No kidding.
Professionally, I'm a financial advisor, and I do love studying that in economics. Yeah.
Thank you. Carrie, you want to tell us a little bit about?
Hi, good morning. I'm Carrie. I am a lifetime resident here, coming out of Kilkaha. And I'm also actively involved in the community, very involved in connecting with businesses, with residents, with everyone that's within our community, working towards solutions. Um, I do volunteer my time a lot, and I am open and available, working towards solutions for our community. And I'm thankful to be here today. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you for volunteering. It's can be a lot of work if you want to make it, but hopefully you'll find it enjoyable and help participate, because one of the things it's important for this commission, I believe, to give the people's voice. What do the people of this island need, and where do they want to go, and how can we help as a commission by advising the Department of Environmental Management and the council. So make your voice heard, but see if you can raise your hand so I recognize you at the same time. That's my statement. I want us to get going on the rest of the agenda. Next up, we have the public statements. I saw 3 parties who had submitted written comments. Peter, is there anyone else that would want to give public testimony?
That's all the written comments I received.
Okay.
They're all posted up online.
Did
Madam
everybody?
Madam Chairman, Jerry Warren and Sandra Demerel are available for oral testimony, please.
Good, good. I'm going to call on you guys next. I just wanted to make sure if there was anybody else on the line. Is Ms. Navarro on the call? Got too many for my screen to show. Doesn't look, I don't see her name.
She just entered the waiting room. I'll let her in right now.
Oh, okay. Did everybody find the posting of the testimony in the file under our agenda? That seemed really convenient to me, that it's all there in one place and accessible. So unless people, if you do have issues with it, let us know and we'll figure out some other way to get it communicating. We were concerned that some of the submissions are big and could blow up your email so that you wouldn't be able to see it. So hopefully we can take advantage of the county website. I guess first off, we've got Jerome Warren, and would you like to speak now, or do you want to wait until we get to the agenda item you're interested in?
This is Jerome Warren. I would like to speak now. I have 2 agenda items, 7B and Business Report 3-5. 7B, that's the Trojan Horse of Naalehu. This was printed in West Hawaii Today on April 23rd. I'll skip the first sentence. It's rather sarcastic. So I'll just go to the second paragraph. Everybody in the Department of Environmental Management and all Hawaii County Council members have refused to look into the financial fiasco surrounding the Naalehu sewer boondoggle. The previous District 6 Environmental Management Commissioner was hostile toward me at meetings when I tried to inform commissioners about what has sidetracked a simple solution to the EPA's gang cesspool conversion mandate. Thankfully, our new commissioner can see the situation, whereas the previous commissioner was part of the problem and the rest of the commissioners just ignored it. Please ask yourselves, if our gang cesspool is such a threat to public health and the environment, then where is the evidence? Why do we need an expensive monumental project? The Trojan Horse in Naalehu is full of outside consultants. Another question is, how much money have they already grabbed from the county's counting house? How much money have they already grabbed from the county's counting house? And who opened the gate? So my next item, that's the abandoned vehicles. So in regard to derelict vehicles, the unregistered lobbyist, Keone Fox, claims heritage to Ka'u. I have an idea that his family lived in the house next door to me. This is the property that is in violation of health and safety regulations. Derelict vehicles are packed in like sardines. These vehicles are parked on the side of the road pavement, on the side of the road pavement, and now they're in the street. They're across the street. So you know, it's a living hell. So anyhow, your mayor's deputy in Kona is unable to correct this public health and safety hazard. I have a mayor's complaint. So the mayor's deputy in Kona, unable, right? His communication with me was an act of psychological warfare. This is another violation of the Code of Ethics. If Keone Fox had any regard for Na'alehu, he would use his skills to help the neighborhood he claims heritage to. This neighborhood is the one that is planned to connect to the sewer plant, which is planned to be in proximity to Keone Fox's trail. Everything is connected to everything. So this sewer plant is under the authority of the EPA. I talked with them this morning. The EPA deadline, according to their gentleman, is 2023. However, your deadline is 2027. Look at the business report. Nobody will straighten this out, not even the EPA. The cars and the sewer are creating mistrust in government. This leads to anarchy. Mahalo.
Georgine, you're muted.
I'm muted. I keep forgetting. I'm trying not to let you listen to my husband take a shower. At least he doesn't sing in the shower. Sandra Demerel, would you please give your testimony now?
Thank you very much. Aloha, Chair Adams, and welcome to the new commissioners as well as those that we've seen so many times before. Thank you so much for your service. This is really splendid that you do have a full commission now. What I want to shed light on this morning is how the county wastewater consultants have a lack of knowledge of the Endangered Species Act and how this will place both the Na'alehu sewer project and the Kona sewage pump station in violation of Section 9 of the ESA, the Endangered Species Act, which can lead to potential expensive civil and criminal penalties. While the department has shown a great respect for Hawaii's cultural laws, what they call Section 106 and so forth, there's a definite lack of understanding of the nature of Section 9 take of endangered species. And while neither the county nor the State Department of Health are eligible for Section 7 consultation. I provided information for you on the differences between Section 7 and Section 10. I'm particularly concerned because at the bottom of page 6 of the director's report, it says Section 7 by DOH for the Na'alehu sewer project. But Section 7 is only available for interagency consultation among federal agencies, like the EPA did on the Pahala project. And as you can read for yourselves in the ESA Basics, the 2-page pamphlet I provided from the Fish and Wildlife, the county and state agencies, the Department of Environmental Management and Department of Health, have to do a Section 10 habitat conservation plan for Hawaiian hoary bats, nenes, and the assorted wild water birds that are endangered species that are found in Na'alehu and in Kona. And finally, I would just say that the department has no federal agency's name for these Section 7 consults. So unless they follow Section 10 procedures, they will not be able to avoid civil and criminal penalties, which does in fact award fees to the people who sue. So it puts a lot of reason for suing in the hands of like Sierra Club and so forth. So again, I want to thank you folks for your service, and I hope that you'll help the department to understand the difference and point out to them that they do need to follow Section 10 of the Endangered Species Act. So thank you very much for your time this morning, and again, thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Ms. Demerol, for your testimony, and we appreciate all the information that's been provided. I'm blanking on Ms. Navarro's first name, Jennifer, had also submitted written testimony that I encourage you to read, that I think we'll be addressing as we move through the agenda. If that's all, I think we'll move on to the next agenda item, unfinished business. And the first item is going through our priority list. If anyone has a comment they'd like to share on where they are on their priority issues, I'll go alphabetically, because then that means I'm first. I will be talking later in the agenda around the director's report about my issues, so I'll take a pass this time. John Burns had gotten some information. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, sure.
you.
I'll make it as quick as possible. It's going to take a little bit of time and probably should lead to some larger discussions later based on what I spoke about with Greg. But yeah, I met with Greg and George at the county, week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, to just discuss almost in general all the issues we talk about here with goals that we have moving towards larger picture like zero waste and how do we manage recycling. And really though, I wanted to cut through a lot of the very obvious issues like budgeting problems and red tape associated with the bureaucracy involved in a lot of the activities, and just try to get a more clear picture of where we can actually help them to proceed in initiatives that they think are valuable. And I do think this is something we should follow up with. And they were really fantastically informative, supportive, willing to do any kind of meetings with the committee or with commissioners one-on-one, just to give more insight, because, you know, as someone that works with the state, you know, there are a lot of complexities to the budget, and it's very rarely a simple situation or a simple solution. There's usually a lot of reasons as to why things act as chaotically, crazily as they seem. And so I think getting the insight from those on the inside can help to clarify. And they also had a lot of initiatives that can help free up funds to help them improve their programs. So on one level, you know, in these meetings, we always come down to the lack of a budget. And I think if we stop there, it's a little bit short-sighted. But a lot of the reasons why their budgets are limited are because these programs come to an end, they have limited terms. And then there's also stipulations with the way money can be moved from, for instance, Oahu to our island to the county. And that often leads to scenarios where there may have been an earmarked amount of funds and only a smaller portion of that makes it here for what can actually be utilized. So I'm just going to run through a few bullets of issues that they brought up where we could provide legitimate support by writing letters to council members saying we think this should be put into legislation to allow them within their department to make positive changes for our waste management and recycling. And so just a few of those that they spoke about. One, you know, is increasing the green waste fees. There's a lot of work they have to do to combat the simple scenario of commercial operations putting green waste in the landfill. And, you know, we all wish that it would be possible to have downstream separation, but the reality is once a bin is contaminated, that bin ends up in the landfill and there it is. And so, yeah, there isn't the money to support the people to be at all the transfer stations, but by raising the fees, no one ever likes that. No one wants to see fees raised, but it actually gives them the capacity then to have an internal managed budget where they can go and monitor that more effectively. They also want to try, and they're in the process of doing this, creating diversion programs, which is something we could support. So certain transfer stations would have dedicated days for green waste and green waste only. And that way, all the green waste that comes that day can in no way contaminate the other waste bins and can't end up in the landfill. So it's small things that seem really simple, but do need a lot of support, because that usually can ruffle feathers in the area where you're suggesting a diversion day, because maybe people don't want to bring it on a Thursday, they want to bring it on a Wednesday. There's never going to be one size that fits all, but it's a reasonable approach to try and eliminate contaminating the waste bins. Another thing that they're really interested in, could use support in pursuing, is more extended producer responsibility programs. This is something that John Olson speaks about a lot, where it's just ways for consumer items to collect a fee up front that can then deal with the disposal and management of that. So one area George is working right now is fees for paint. So it's a paint program, and the paint suppliers and the stores that sell paint, like HPM and Home Depot, they're actually all quite supportive of it. So it would have fees built into the paint you purchase that then would help with the paint disposal. But what they're trying to do here with this, as opposed to the tire program, is actually have the fees go to the county recycling, not to that business, and then have the business tasked with recycling the item. Because as we've seen with tires, that doesn't work perfectly. And then the surplus of funds that isn't used for tire recycling stays with the private company. And we need that surplus of funds to stay within the recycling budget, so they have the capacity to deal with the management and respond to public input. So there's paint, but then there's also other programs that we can mimic that are done, elsewhere. And I think if we establish that, we work towards the goal that John's mentioned, where we just have more items that have a fee up front. That fee goes to the county. That enables the county to properly recycle and dispose of those items. We also can support standardized waste management plans. So as an example, with the plastic bags, yes, it's a great success. A problem can be when each county, in other words, each island, adopts a unique structure of the rules, and then that can catch businesses off guard and causes a lot of problems, especially for companies, just as an example, like Safeway or some other group that is ubiquitous across the islands. It's difficult for them to always know and be aware of the reality that there might be small, minute changes in the rules among the counties. So one thing we could push to support is just standardized plans, which makes it easier for businesses to comply. And, I do think that is an important way of thinking about this sometimes, is the easier you make it for businesses and the public to comply with rules and certain programs, the more likely they are to do it. So it's I think, a positive consideration to take into account. We can also help them with encouraging life cycle assessments. So that's just encouraging council and the county to take on and allocate funds for life cycle assessments for a lot of these recycling programs. Just as an example, like high five programs and other ones, they have a lifespan and they don't always go past a certain point. And with a lot of items that we recycle now, the cost and requirement to deal with it is going to change in 5 years and 10 years. And so, it's great that we have Elise on board who might be able to give insight into issues like that as well. But it would be a very positive movement to do more long-term life cycle assessments. One good example of this is just recycling. We saw the public outcry over the loss of the contract for recycling, but a reality of that, which we need better education for, is just you can't do the recycling that's done on the mainland when you're isolated on a small island, and you burn an enormous amount of resources moving that recycling away. So we need to develop creative strategies that work for here, and they're not going to be the same as everywhere, but we can't develop those without putting some resource allocation towards it. On that note, with High Five, they're hoping to be able to increase the glass fee, because right now the state funds that go to glass don't actually go to our county. So we're running out of money to deal with glass, and that's a sort of low-hanging fruit because we know the mechanisms involved in recycling it. And so this is what I was sort of alluding to before, where often you have money that is set at the state level, but that doesn't necessarily mean it makes it to the counties the way it needs to. And so that's where we can support that our county council lobbies to the state to ensure that those funds make it to the recycling program so they have the adequate budgets they need to deal with things like glass. Just two more, for example, with oil recycling, if we could help advocate to take the scale down to quarts instead of large gallon volumes, that helps deal with oil recycling at a consumer level. We're all consumers. We typically go and buy oil for vehicles in quarts because that's how it's measured for vehicles. We don't often buy 55-gallon drums. So as it is now, it's geared to high-end commercial consumer levels, not individual consumers. And that's something they would like to change that we could help. And then just e-waste funds being allocated directly to the county. So there was about 250,000 that went to the island, but only 100,000 made it to the county because of the stipulations in moving funds. There's a whole backstory to that, but it's just another example where we can advocate to county council to advocate that all those funds set aside actually end up in the budgets for our county to do what they need to do to deal with e-waste. So those are just 7 of the prime examples that came out of that meeting. I'm happy to summarize those. I'm happy to put together letters that we can review as a commission. But I think these tangible directives that we can essentially, take from their advice to push forward that program, to give them the resources they need to do their job is one way we can actually make a difference. Because there's a lot of great ideas, but these folks also do this as a career and they know the bizarre nuances. And so I do think this is like a valuable area we could spend some time on, just trying to support them to not focus on the lack of budget, but how we can change the structuring to build independent budgets within our county to maintain these programs long-term. So I know that's probably more than you were hoping for, but that's what I got from that meeting.
No, they're full of ideas. And yes, so what I would like to recommend is that you come up with some specific proposals. We'll get it on the agenda and we'll have background information on, whichever priorities you want to cast on that. And then we can address it as a commission. If you want to go ahead and draft a letter and then we can discuss around the letter, I think that would work as well. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to see from this, everybody having kind of priority issues they're working on, is pull together a package and come to the commission and we can discuss it on an agenda, make a motion, write a letter and get it done. But doing that background, you threw 7 things at us and it isn't something that we're going to be able to vote on right now. So I think that would help. And I think they do have some great ideas, and I'm gonna, we do have life cycle assessment as a somewhat topic area, trying to press on what happened to that money. And we'll be talking also, I think, about a couple of the bills in the legislators report where they were taking money away from environmental programs. So I think we can maybe cover a couple of them, but a nice package and agenda item would help us out a lot.
Yeah, no, that's basically the overview. And then I'll kind of talk to Greg and try to figure out a prioritized list of those. And yeah, I think it's a good idea to just start with the letter and then we can all weigh in and revise based on input. And when we're happy with it, if we want to push it forward, that's a good way to do so.
Thank you.
Georgine, you're muted. Sorry, I don't know if you were
Muted again. Melissa, did you have anything?
I don't know. I don't have any new information. I wasn't able to pull stuff together for this meeting, but there were the couple of things I did want to share. There's one thing that I didn't share at the last meeting, information that I found. Actually, the first thing I wanted to say was I just want to reiterate that one of the barriers to composting is the difficulty of the permitting process. I think that's a really important consideration. And then the other piece that I didn't mention at last meeting was there's been an argument about harvesting methane from our landfills. And so if we continue to put organics in the landfill, then we'd be able to harvest the methane. And I basically want to oppose that idea, because I think that it makes more sense to use the, the composting material for compost and not for methane, especially when things like solar and wind are so cheap. It doesn't really make sense to me that we would want to harvest the methane. And then I have information that I'm gonna share later about the life cycle analysis, because I had requested that that's on the agenda, and I got some information from George, and I want to kind of tie a couple things together in regards to that. So I'll speak a little bit more on that later.
Okay, great. Dee Fulton, did you have anything?
Just that there's been a couple of meetings. Rebecca Villegas, our council representative for District 7, and I and Mr. Ramsey Mansour met via Zoom and just had a discussion about priorities for District 7. The priorities I've identified have been clean up the leakage of sewer and infiltration of ocean water into the sewage system on Ali'i Drive. The development of a sewer improvement district from Kahalu to Keaho. Try to get those moving parts going. So we had that meeting, just a discussion. There was a follow-up with Rick Gaffney and myself and Cindy Punahole, and again, Rebecca Villegas. And we talked about strategizing for how to make these things come to fruition.
Great. And again, once you're ready to have us move and do something, a write-up, let's get it on the agenda with background information so that we can move it. If EMC is the proper venue to make that happen. Rick Gaffney, anything?
Yeah, couple things. Since last meeting, I've been working on the ongoing issue of we have sewer plumbing connected to nothing, which makes no sense to me. Essentially, when the Queen Kahamono Highway was widened, a sewer pipe and a return line were installed between Kohanaiki and the Kealakehe Parkway, which is the entrance to Honokohau Harbor. But there's been no effort, or there's been no movement toward the actual connection of those two pipes that lasts 0.6 of a mile to the wastewater treatment plant. So I had a meeting with the director and also discussions with Representative Nicole Lowen, who represents this district, because clearly funding is required to make those connections and actually have a complete sewer system, which not only delivers sewage from as far north as Kohanaiki and all of the Mauka properties that can be connected, particularly on Hinalani Drive, where there's new developments going in. So their sewage all gets to the plant, and then the recycled water comes back, because at least in years past, Kohanaiki was interested in buying recycled water once it became available. And Honokohau Harbor has always been one of the target destinations for recycled water, because they have lots of landscaping to take care of. So I've put in the chat a copy of the West Hawaii Today article, which ran, I think it was yesterday. For those of you that didn't see it, basically the North Kona Sewer Pump Station project is actually moving forward. And that will, apparently that will include at least the sewer line to connect Kealakehe Parkway to the wastewater treatment plant. I don't know whether that's also going to include the return line. And if once I confirm whether or not, if it's not, then I'll come back to the commission and suggest we send a letter to the council. The bottom line being, there's no sense digging a trench for one pipe when you can dig the same trench and put two pipes in it. And that would be the sewage line and the return line. So that's number one. The other thing I've been working on since the last meeting is getting the Department of Land and Natural Resources to commit to sewering all of Honokohau Harbor, so that sewage, which is currently essentially flowing into the ocean because of antiquated sewer systems, antiquated sewage management systems in operation there and failing regularly. There are a combination of cesspools, injection wells, septic systems at Honokohau Harbor. None of them are connected to others. There's also a membrane bioreactor that Gentry's Kona Marina was required to put in by the state. We have a new district manager for the boating division, and he's very positively disposed toward getting all of the harbor sewered, and is making very strong progress in that direction. I also sit on a Honokohau 2050 commission, and we have made that our first priority to be sure that we sewer all of Honokohau, connect at the highway, and also that we are ready to receive our One Water when it's available for irrigation. So that's my report.
Thank you. Just let us know when you're ready to have us take some proposed action, and we can discuss it on an agenda item. Next up, Lee McIntosh. Anything?
I don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay. And that's no problem. Don't worry about it. And John Olson, what you been up to?
Well, things that are near and dear to me, of course, is, and where I started was with the abandoned vehicle process, which is a tale all unto itself. Puna was being, back in the day, I'm talking the early 90s, Puna was being used as a dumping ground for unwanted cars. And a bunch of us got together and decided we were going to work on that issue. And actually, part of that is the reason this body exists, because a couple dozen of us got together and got it on the ballot. This was not an idea that came from government, trust me. The car issue continues to be a sore point with us here. And I think it's going to probably be a sore point until we obviously deal with the funding issue. The funding is not being dealt with because basically all of our funding for these programs comes from the county coffers, which is based on property tax. And there's a total disconnect between the people who bring the cars to the island, use the cars, and then dispose of them, and the disposal process. We need to get to the point where we have collected the money for the disposal of the vehicle, and anything else that we are going to need to dispose of or remanufacture or reuse is collected at the point of purchase. The bottle bill has been a fairly successful program. We certainly do not have the litter that we used to have before that program was implemented. And it is by and large self-funding. And we need to check the boxes up and down the line on anything that comes onto the island that has a disposal component. We need to have the money in the bank to deal with it when it shows up. Either to remove it or reutilize it here. I've spent the last couple of months talking this up with everybody who would listen to me. And yeah, probably the most challenging part is going to be actually setting up the programs themselves. Thank goodness for computers these days. And the fact that everything that comes in here comes in with a barcode already on it. So my question now is, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be on that? Just as a side note, I was one of the people involved on the design committee that created the first recycling center, the one in Keough. The issue of green waste was brought up. Initially, we had dealt with that as having the green waste facility privately operated, but adjoining that facility, there was property set aside alongside of the Keough transfer station recycling center to deal with green waste. That component was never completed. Initially, and still, I think we all agree that it is an asset. It can be an asset for the community if it is managed. Paying for it, obviously, is going to be a question. In the circulars that we sent out, the questionnaires that we sent out initially about green waste, most of the people who answered the handout said that they would be willing to pay for compost. So the majority of people willing to drop off were also willing to pay for the completed process. I'll have more on that as we go along. I'm still working on some of the finer points, and I would really like to have a broader discussion with all of the people at the table here to see how we can make that move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Again, I'll say if you've got some specific proposals, background information, and you're ready to roll, to let us know, and we'll get it on the agenda and tackle it.
Yeah, I'm getting close to the point where I think I'm going to actually want to agendize this and get it down on the Pala Pala.
Okay. And to our new commissioners, I would recommend, if there are any of the issues, I sent them both the list of priority issues that we all have. And if anything that you've heard spoken about interests you, contact the lead person and get some more background. Or if you have your own issue area that you would like to do the homework on, pull together information and make a proposal for us to discuss at one of our meetings so that we can move it forward, just let me and Peter know, and we'll get it on the agenda. We are all volunteers, so you work at the pace you can work at. But I think we're all passionate around this area, and we're only going to make things happen if we can pull it together into something concrete. We can move forward. So everybody, good luck. Any other comments on that agenda item? Seeing no hands, I'll move on to 5B. Attached in the agenda materials was the letter, thanks to Dee Fulton for drafting, to recommend to the council to hire a consultant in financial environmental funding to look at, in particular, an enterprise funding process for wastewater treatment management to get us a sustainable long-term revenue base to handle the costs that come in to keep our wastewater treatment operations functional. And I also threw in our previous letter saying also look at that energy savings performance contracts is another option. And hopefully the consultant would look at all the different ways, whether it's upfront fees or additional areas that we're not even aware of that can help with that. Did anybody have comment, changes, or maybe, I don't know, Peter, you tell me the official rules here, but I don't know, do we need a motion to approve this letter and then do a discussion?
I'll defer to council.
Malia?
Sorry, my computer wouldn't let me unmute. Yes, a motion before discussion.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the letter, the draft letter to the council on wastewater management funding consultation?
So moved.
That's from John Olson.
Second, Rick Gaffney.
All right. Discussion. I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand, using their little icon. There's Lee McIntosh. Yes.
I guess my only concern is you reference Honolulu as an example for their wastewater system, and I don't think that's a good example because they need to revamp their entire sewer system just like us, but theirs is going to cost as much as rail. So that might not be a good example to include.
Could I ask Dee Fulton whether you had some comment on referencing the Honolulu experience of establishing an enterprise fund? Partly, I think it was just to say, hey, we have done it in the state. It's not a strange, weird thing to do. Yes, we're not Honolulu, but lessons learned and approaches to make to it could inform any council that we get. Dee?
I think the advantage to referencing the Honolulu experience is that there's a template. So we can get contacts made between our county and that county and acquire the language and just smooth out the process, streamline it.
I concur.
Yeah, this is Melissa. I don't see there being a problem with mentioning Honolulu if something can be learned from it.
John here, learn from other people's mistakes.
And Lee, this is Georgine Adams again. It was more as a guide rather than copy straight on. I think Dee's right. It's template that could be looked at, but we'd also hope that knowledgeable consultant that Ramsey's got some ideas on who that could be, would look at an array of sustainable funding processes that we could use for wastewater treatment. And the enterprise fund concept is a discipline and a transparency and long-term planning that I think would benefit us. Do you have further comments or?
This is Melissa. I just want to share one thing. I guess my only concern is that, you know, we're hiring an outside consultant and they make a recommendation and then that recommendation just sits on a shelf somewhere and nothing becomes of it. So I think that some kind of follow-up maybe needs to happen so that, you know, money's not wasted on hiring a consultant and then nothing happens. That's my concern.
I think it's a good concern, and it's one that that's a role for this commission, is to say, all right, we were recommended this. What are you doing about it? Here's the report. We think it's really important. So we could emphasize it. I mean, we could disagree with whatever the consultant comes up with, or maybe like parts of it, not another. So I would assume and hope that the commission would follow through and make sure that it's happening. But it's a very good point.
So I'm wondering, this is Melissa again, I'm wondering if maybe something could be added in that letter that says something to that effect, that we will be following up, on this subject, or, I don't know, however we want to word it, just to kind of emphasize that point. Just a thought.
This Commissioner McIntosh, I agree with the idea of the enterprise fund. I was just concerned that we wanted to follow the path that Honolulu did, but I feel that if the director is involved, and just from listening to what he said in the past, it sounds like he can stay on top of it and do some things that he could go to. So I don't think that would be an issue. But we can always. I don't think we necessarily. I mean, to me, I would think it would kind of sound like a threat from the commission if we put in, we're going to be watching the industry do it. But we can always keep tabs on it ourselves and have the letter be more positive rather than, I don't know, accusatory sort of.
Is Ramsey on?
Yes, I'm on.
If you want to comment about Honolulu, since you've had some experience there.
Well, the whole idea, I guess I heard John Olson, I think he hit it right on, and Dee and you, Georgie, and the idea is now to get the financial consultant, as you guys recommend, to look at the pros and cons and lesson learned, so we can avoid the bad mistakes and move forward with a better bulletproof system for our county. So the whole idea is once they analyze it, and the good thing now we have, economic finance background member in your commission. So Alyssa also could assist, navigate through these requirements and the needs. So, I mean, it's a win-win, no matter how you look at it. And the city and the county of Honolulu, I mean, they see in the dividend as we speak. I mean, that program started in 2009 because, their system, they were in the same situation as we were, a collapsing system, don't have the fund for it. Now they provide in the top of the line system that it's resource recovery, it's water reuse, it's fertilizer for compost. I mean, it's amazing how they can be self-sufficient and financially stable to do all these projects without the subsidy from general fund. So it kind of empowers the department to do what's right rather than being under the mercy of finger failing. They cannot touch them. So health and safety comes priority, and the funding comes priority, because you cannot meet the requirement of health and safety if you don't have the fund for it.
Right.
So it's, and that's my thought on that issue.
Thank you, Ramsey. We have a motion to accept the letter as written. Is there a motion to amend? I'm not seeing one, so can we have a vote? How many recommend that we sign this letter and send it to council as is?
Rick Gaffney, aye.
Oh, should
John
I?
Olson, aye.
Georgine Adams, aye.
Melissa, I.
Elise Robinson, I also raised my hand, but
Dee Fulton, aye.
Lee? McIntosh?
Yeah, I said Lee McIntosh, aye.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's everybody. So we will, or I will, sign the letter and send it off. And yes, I will follow up. Note that I did put in the thing about, we sent that letter about the energy performance contracts too. So we can keep bugging. So thank you.
Madam Chair?
John Olson?
Yes. Along that line, also, you might, when you pass it along, put a request to the appropriate committee chair to agendize it so that we can speak to this to all of the council and to the public.
I guess that would be to the finance committee
Correct.
or to Tim Richards.
Well, I mean, you know, if you talk about it long enough, they come to believe it.
Let me check in with Peter and Malia on who else we should copy on this. I'm not sure it should be with the letter itself, but I'll try to follow that up. Okay. Next agenda item is the number 6 or 5.2, 5B2, get the numbers right. Availability of chlorides testing data for the sewage pipes along the Lee Drive. I think Dee, that is one of your concerns. Do you still have issues about where the data is? Are you getting that information?
Well, Georgine, to be honest with you, I haven't made inquiry recently. And based on the discussion in the previous meeting, I came away from that with the understanding that if I ask, then that data will be shared with me. I guess I would inquire more specifically with Director Mansour. Ramsey, should I ask you or should I inquire with the gentleman that's the head of your operations, wastewater, whose name escapes me at the moment?
That'll be Eric, our deputy chief. But I just, like I said earlier, I think prior meeting, I just want to make sure the interpretation of that data. If you have a question, please call me. Don't share any interpretation may mislead the public or staff, because that will open a can of worms, because people will jump in, not understanding what's going on.
The subject is the accessibility of the data. So
Yeah.
that's the issue here. And what I do with the data is at my discretion. But I appreciate your opinion on that. Thank you.
Eric, you have his contact, right?
No, I don't believe. Which Eric are we speaking of?
Is Eric online with us? Is he signed
Takamura?
up? Oh, Dora, okay. Dora,
This is Eric.
yeah.
I'm
Eric.
online.
Okay. Eric Takamura.
I turned on my video.
Okay. Thank you, Director. And that's all we need to talk about this time. Thank you, Georgine.
Okay. And if you need something to come back at the next meeting, just let us know. Item number 3 is, again, me asking as to the format and content of the director's report. We're still kind of going back and forth, how much to squish it down, how much to put all the background information into that director's report. Does anybody at this time have some suggestions for the report? Are you getting what you need to out of it?
This is Melissa. I think it seems like the format's easy to read and the content's easy to read. I think it seems pretty functional. I'm wondering, is this a time, I do have a question about one of the items. Would this be a time for that?
No, we're going to talk about that as item 7.
Okay.
So we'll go through the report then. I would like to say I'm going to be suggesting for the integrated solid waste management plan, maybe try to come up with some structured report on how implementation is moving forward on that. But I can communicate with Ramsey on that. But just again, say it's an open issue. If anybody's got some suggestions, they're not getting the kind of information they want, or they're tired of reading certain items, we can make some modifications on that report. Ramsey and I are both still learning how to make it work best. Moving on to new business. Melissa, and I will say mine as well, question why the life cycle analysis that DEM was planning to do was postponed. And that question was also raised by it's Jennifer Navarro, isn't it right? In written testimony. So Ramsey.
Yeah, I'll refer this to my solid waste chief, Greg Liddell.
Is Greg on?
Greg on?
I see George is on. Hedusco.
And George could chime in.
Yes, I'm here. This is George. Greg is, I believe Greg's at a safety meeting today, so he's not able to participate. So we had planned on utilizing the funds available in our education budget. The plan was, we did the work to solicit the, grade the consultants. We got the consultants on, worked on the contract. And so we had a budget for it, but it became apparent that the division is in dire straits of funding. And I was informed that those funds were no longer available. So the funding for the project was taken away from us. Now, starting July 1st, we do have a budget, and currently we do have the funds in our education budget to do this project if the budget is passed by the county as drafted. So there is a chance that we will be able to do it. And I know that the SWAC, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and the staff were very excited about doing this project. And as some of you are aware, County Council did pass just recently our integrated solid waste management plan. They did approve that. And as Georgine has indicated, this is one of the high priorities, one of the top 6 items. And the goal is to, I think John had mentioned it too, the goal is to make sure whatever we do in this county, that we are not wasting resources, but saving resources. And the plan will give us a guide on doing that. So again, we're excited about doing that project, but funding was cut. So we didn't have the opportunity to do it right now.
Thank you, George. Melissa, did you have any further questions?
I don't really have questions. I guess I just, This kind of goes back to what I was sharing at our last meeting about the importance of collecting information and data. And, I'm really hoping that that budget gets approved. What I learned was that it was $50,000 to do this life cycle analysis, which, is not a lot of money. I mean, if the division is short on funds, obviously, 50,000, if there's no money, there's no money. But I guess it's just frustrating for me. And I'm sure for most of us, when we have these goals, Georgine, you were on the SWAC committee, you guys met for a year, or more. And, we come up with these goals and we present them, and then, because of money, they're not accomplished. But I think if we want to move forward, this study, the life cycle analysis, this is the exact information that we need. Like George said, in order to determine whether, our programs are doing more harm than good. And like I said at the last meeting, one of the examples is shipping our cardboard to Taiwan. We're shipping our cardboard to Taiwan, and not only is the environmental impact, pretty large, but we could really use that cardboard here for composting projects. And so it's like that exact thing that would come up in this life cycle analysis, and we would get to see, we would actually have the science, to back up our decision-making process. So yeah, I don't know if it would be helpful to draft a letter to county council, maybe in support of passing the budget so that something like this could be approved. I mean, maybe that would be something that we could do.
I assume this is, Georgine, the whole budget, and whether you're ready or at the point of going through all the items that are in that budget and say, yeah, pretty please, will you pass this thing? I know it's been presented to the finance committee of the council. I sort of got to listen to that. Ramsey, do you have any thoughts, or the couple of council persons who are on the call, whether there is advantage to having EMC send a letter of support?
I think so far, I don't know if you all have the chance to see the first budget hearing with the committee. So I believe it went well. So I guess I'll leave it up to you. I think that, last year, this current year, because you guys know with the COVID and shorter revenue, our division was about $1.8 million short. So now we have to figure out how we're going to offset that money just due to short in revenue. So, but definitely as we presented the next year budget, with the idea is to continue with the status quo of the year prior to the COVID. So hopefully that should cover the $1.8 million shortage and put us back on track. So yeah, I'll leave it up to the commission. Anything definitely helps, but I think everybody in the committee and council member understand that our departments, the wastewater and solid waste, really needed funding. So I hope they continue supporting that concept, and definitely, anything that helps from you that adds, more support.
Well, I've got to assume that the council would expect us to support funding for the Department of Environmental Management. And if we were to go through and try to line item different things, I'm not sure we're prepared as a commission to do that. For example, calling out 50,000 for an LCA report.
I think your initial letter that's going to go for the, getting the financial consultant, I guess, is that what you guys are going to submit? That by itself is going to send a message to, I would imagine, that the department is in dire, financial stability and funding. So Yeah, I mean, you guys already had the message sent. Once you're gonna send that letter, I think they know.
Comments from any of the other commissioners?
Well, John here. I will point out again that this commission came into being by a vote of the eligible voters on the island of Hawaii. This is not a creation of government in and of itself. So the majority of the people on this island at the time believed that this body would improve their overall well-being. That's what we're here to do. In terms of how we handle our waste stream and our wastewater. So step up to the plate.
I guess this, Georgine, what I'm asking is there something specific to this budget, proposed budget, that we are prepared to comment on? And if so, we need a copy of the budget and go through it. And
right.
John?
I mean, the
Sorry, go ahead, John.
okay. I mean, the point here is that the solid waste and wastewater divisions have produced budgets based on what they feel they need to do. And we have, to this point, supported what they believe they need to do to accomplish their job. So the question is, are we satisfied with the work that has been done? And it sounds like we are supportive of it. And now it's up to the council to figure out where they're going to get the money to do it.
I guess this is Melissa. I guess my question is, I mean, do we need to go through the entire budget, or is it that, there's this one line item that we're aware of? Maybe the county council doesn't know much about a life cycle analysis or the importance of it, and so it could get easily overlooked. I don't really know, honestly, how budget approval works. But to me, yeah, it's one item in the budget. And so is that something that we would have to do, is look through the entire budget when there's this one thing that, we need money for?
No, if the question was directed to me, my answer would be probably not. I mean, the appropriate agency has looked at this and said, this is what we need to do to get the job done. And this is what it's going to cost. And we have, I think, supported that analysis. And therefore, we should be going to the council and making it clear that we support their analysis of what needs to get done. And it's their job to figure out how to do it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
we're not talking about how many candles we're going to put on the cake.
This is Georgine. I'm sitting here looking at some comment from Peter Sir in the chat. Revised draft of the budget is coming out May 5th, and there'll be a public hearing on May 18th. Is this the whole county budget or just the DEM budget, Peter?
It's for the whole budget.
The whole county?
Correct.
Okay, so the DEM budget is a portion of that. And as I understand it, and George and Ramsey, correct me if I'm wrong, but the LCA is within the education budget. And I would be amazed if it was a line item being sent to the county council for a budget approval.
You're right,
Don't
and I
know.
see George's hand is up. So George, I see your hand up.
Yeah, that is correct, Georgine. It is currently we're looking at it coming out of the education budget. And we all know how important education is and how we haven't been doing the job that we want to do because our money's been taken away from us multiple years. So just so you know, the education budget is currently $100,000. So the LCA would take half of that to 50,000. Now, Greg's not here, so I'm sort of speaking out of turn. But what would be great is if we had 50,000 to do the LCA and the education stayed. We had our education money. But again, I'm speaking. You know, that's what I would like to see as the manager of that program. But unfortunately, the chief's not here, so.
So I'm thinking that if there's a need for a letter, or if this commentary is sufficient to emphasize that we would like to see the DEM conduct or prepare a life cycle analysis format for thinking through the alternatives on how they do waste management, and that it be adequately funded. And where it happens to come out of the pot the DEM gets is less of an issue to argue with the council. It's more DEM to prioritize. And again, having been on the SWAC, education was number one. And part of education is giving the information in the context that a life cycle analysis provides on what are the true costs behind the way we do, how we do the waste management. So it's important. Is it worth 50% of the education budget? Are there other things that we could do? That makes me kind of wince, but you've got to take the money somewhere and forward it. So I'm struggling a little bit here on just what it is, what action should EMC be taking? I'm more skeptical of the need to send something to council, because council is going to be looking at the big number and everything that DM is doing, and $50,000 is a piddle. Or is it something we need to go to DEM and say, there were priorities set in the integrated solid waste management plan with education number one, and LCA was, oh, I forget what number it was, but it was in the top 6 list. Do it and give some money toward it. But I think they know that. So I'm not sure that we need to put it in writing. And if we do, I need a motion for us to do that. And what would we put in writing?
This is Commissioner McIntosh. Since it's coming up for public hearings, it might just be better if we individually contributed testimony and support for the DEM budget. Because usually how it works is the departments submit large numbers to the finance committee, and then they say, you know, yeah, okay, and then they leave it up to the department to decide how they're going to divvy it out. So it's not, unless they specifically request line item, that's usually not in the budget. But you know, if we support the budget as is, if they feel it's enough, then that's all we can do. I don't think it's necessary for us as a commission to write a letter specifically for something, asking. Just what I feel.
Thank you, Lee. Any other comments?
Well, I mean, not to whip the horse, but yeah, John here. This body has a seat at the table by the same methodology that the mayor and all of the council members have a seat at the table. It is a creation of a vote of eligible voters on the island of Hawaii. The majority of the people on this island felt it was important enough to create this body and to speak to these issues directly to those other elected officials. And I'm not saying that we should not at any opportunity, go and speak to what we believe are the needs, but it is pretty fundamental. And the reason I can say that is because we got the majority of the votes that created the organization, the committee, the body. So I think, if I have any fault, and some of the fault is mine, that in the past we have not exercised that, what I see as an obligation. I'm done.
So
Maybe
John,
something, maybe I
this is,
could, Georgianne,
Ramsey, did you
maybe,
have a response?
yeah. Just maybe what you need to do, if it is close to your heart and everybody's in the commission, and based on what I heard from George, he's kind of hesitant to split our education budget because that's going to take away from other educational program that we need to do for the entire year. Maybe you guys ought to request additional $50,000 you put to the budget to allow for this contract to move forward. That way, at least that 50,000 will be dedicated just to that study, and will be approved by council, and upon your request. So that way, you guys all guarantee the study is going to be done, because that 50,000 will be dedicated for that particular study. Otherwise, I could see George and my division struggling between, other educational program may take away from. So maybe, what John was saying, if it's your obligation and you want this study to be done, maybe ask for dedicated fund for that 50,000 just to go toward the study.
Melissa
I'd
Carpel,
make,
question, a comment?
I forget, sorry.
It's okay. All right. If you come back to it, let me know. John Olson, you wanted to make another comment?
well, I mean, I certainly would support that as a mechanism to accomplish the goal.
I think that was my question, actually, was to ask John specifically, what action to be taken, if we have a seat at the table and it's our kuleana to, make some movement in these matters, then what specific action? So it does sound like, Ramsey, that idea of drafting a letter to ask for an additional $50,000, to be specifically spent on that study, it seems like that would be well within our power to do that. And I would be willing to work on that letter.
Are you making a motion?
I'm making a
I will
motion.
second it.
She has to make it first, John.
Oh, okay.
I think I did. I'm making a motion.
To
State your
write a
motion.
letter recommending $50,000 be dedicated to a life cycle assessment study, whatever
Yes.
George calls it.
Yeah, the life cycle analysis study.
Okay, with John
It
seconding it.
it has a second. Yep. Discussion.
Thank you, John. Anybody else have any comments? Elise?
This is Elise. I wonder if asking for the extra 50,000, or maybe the way it's worded, will cause some confusion, since it's already an ask in the other bucket of money, will the council think we're requesting 100,000?
We could clarify that.
You know what I mean? Mhm.
Yeah. Good thought.
That the 100,000 is for educational program. It's not per se just for that contract. So our goal is, which is very low amount
I
to
see.
start with.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of work ahead of us from that part of the education. So like George said, if you take away 50,000, that's gonna limit us to do nothing almost for the entire year to do any educational programs. So
Okay.
no, that definitely the 50 would be dedicated just to that study. And that reflect that it's very close to your heart, guys. You need it to be done. Because for us as a department, the education along that entire island, it's probably has more priority than just doing the report. Because, 100,000 is not gonna take you anywhere. I mean, it's just a small amount of money.
Right.
Now, this
No,
is,
we have to,
I would agree with that. We're talking about bumping up your request for budget by another 50,000
That's correct.
and
Yes.
have it specific to conduct this study that George will give you the language to describe, Melissa.
Yeah. Just to kind
Correct.
of give you an idea how we create our budget, just so John, I mean, you mentioned about the obligation and what have you, and the department kind of lay out the budget and what have you, but we also, our hand are constrained. We get instruction how to lay the budget. Stay within the last year, don't increase it, don't, what have you. So we get these requirements that we have to stay within. And sometimes we may not be able to even include programs that you guys would like to see in the budget because we have parameters that we have to pretty much set our budget for. But if you as a commission, you guys foresee something that is not in the budget, but you guys want it, then that's where your obligation comes in. And
Yes.
send a letter that says add additional money because you guys firmly believe in that.
Okay, so we have a
Right.
motion on the table to write a request to the council to add an additional $50,000 dedicated to conducting a life cycle assessment. There must be some name, George, you have for it, a template of how to evaluate our solid waste and, is it just solid waste? Management programs, recycle programs. Any other discussion before we take a vote? Okay, I'm going to do roll call just to make this, close this out. John Burns, are you still here? I think he had a class he had to go teach. Elise Robinson,
Aye.
Carrie Opie,
Aye.
Opie, sorry.
OPE, aye.
John Olson,
aye.
aye, aye. Melissa Cardwell, it's your motion, I assume, yes?
Aye.
Lee McIntosh,
Aye.
Dee Fulton,
Aye.
Rick Gaffney,
Aye.
and I'll say aye as well. Okay, Melissa, if you will take a shot at drafting that and giving the timing, it looks like we would need to get that in on or before May 18. So I assume we can circulate your draft to the committee. I don't think it's going to be extraordinarily controversial, but I'll let Malia and keep keep us on track if we can get an approval by email on that letter.
So when I just send it, I'll reach out to George. I'll reach out to you, George, about that, and then I would just send it to you, Georgine.
Yeah, and Peter and I will get it out to everybody.
Okay, I'll get working on that.
Thank you. All right, moving along. I had a question about the R&D department has a innovation grant, and whether or not DEM was working on getting some of that money. And I was speaking with George yesterday, but maybe George, you could talk about, or if you want to defer to your boss Ramsey. It's grant money. It varies in amounts from 5 to 25, I think even up to $50,000. So given that you have no money, are you working on getting one of those grants, and which ones?
Yes, we are. We're seeing if we're able to apply for those. So we are having an internal discussion on that. And there's a couple of projects that may have potential for, and that is I'm just going to name a couple of them. One is we are short funded for the electronic recycling program. So we're seeing if there's a good fit there. Also, Senna Berrig, our recycling specialist, is working on a master recycler composting program. And so we're looking to see how that works out. And actually, Georgine worked on that grant previously with Recycle Hawaii, and they were successful in getting a $5,000 grant. Ultimately, they gave that money back or didn't accept it, but we're very interested in using the language that they used in that and basically duplicating that effort and maybe upping it to more than 5,000. The problem is when you don't have any money and there's a 50% match, that does cause a problem. But we're still going to be pursuing those and see where we can come up with the matching funds. We can use our staff time, so we might be able to cover our match utilizing our staff time for that, maybe even the volunteer time. So no, we are definitely pursuing those, and there's more than just those two programs, but that gives you an idea that we are looking to try to fill some of the funding holes that we have with that grant, and we're looking for other grants too, not just that one.
Thank you, George. I'm glad to see you're going after that. I would also, the link is in the agenda item. If you have any organizations that you're working with, those grants can be given to NGOs as well. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. But the deadline's May 18th, so work fast. Any other comments, thoughts about the R&D innovation grant opportunity? No? Okay, item 3 is it still okay to keep having these virtual meetings? Our discussion from last meeting was, yeah, we all like the fact that we don't have to drive across the island. It sounds like things may be loosening up, maybe, relative to COVID, but whether Malia and Peter have heard of any official sanction that would allow us to continue doing virtual meetings of this commission?
Yes, you guys are can continue to conduct virtual meetings. That's pretty much the norm across most boards and commissions of the county.
Okay, great. And I get for Carrie and Elise, we had talked about it last time that since this is indeed the Big Island, we all appreciate not having to drive for more than an hour to go to a meeting. And would continue this. And we also think it's been great for having more opportunity for the public to listen in on the meetings. So as far as I'm concerned, we should still do this. I think at some point when it's all over and we're all vaccinated, we should get together just to get together, because there is advantages to bonding as a group. But for now, glad to keep doing these Zooms. Next up, before Ramsey has to disappear, he has to leave at 11:30, the director's report.
Peter had attached the report, so I'll take any questions, but I first want to thank Rick Gaffney and Dee Fulton for our meeting and reaching out for discussion. Thank you both. And also I want to thank John Burns for meeting with our staff to understand our business so he could better focus on our needs. I think that was a great idea. Melissa, I know you had shown interest on one of the waste treatment plant, I believe, the Hilo, but let us know when you want to do that. I'd be more than happy to also provide any information that you may need. And as far as some of the comments that were given at the beginning of the meeting from Sandra about the Endangered Species Act. Well, I know I got Dora online, but we could look into it about the animal tape. So we'll look at section 10 to see how that's going to be impacted, and we'll talk to our consultant. And John Olson, I think you had issue with the abandonment of the vehicle. Please continue working with Greg, our division, and figure out a way. I know my deputy director, Brenda, she committed to do more about the abandonment of these vehicles, especially in your area and the Pahala area and others within the county, on the Puna district too. So we're going to be able to come up with something that could take care of these issues. I know the beautification project is under public works, but I think also they have to be within the right of way so they can be able to really pick up any abandoned vehicles, that when it's on private properties, we cannot limit our involvement. So, but like I said, let's continue working on that, trying to figure ways to beautify the island. And if anybody had any questions about the report, please, ask. If you're okay with the report, then I'll take it as Peter done a great job putting it together.
This is Melissa. I have a quick question about one of the active bills that's in the legislature, HB 1298. So I just wanted to find out, so that piece of legislation is about moving $5 million from the beverage container deposit special fund and $1 million from the electronic device recycling fund. So how will that affect, well, will that affect those programs? And if so, how?
Yeah, definitely. I know George is being a participant on that bill. So George, go ahead and chime in.
We've already been impacted by COVID-19, where the Department of Health has given us fewer funds than what they originally told us they were going to give us. So it's uncertain how those funds being transferred out of the designated funds will impact us in the long term, but we've already been impacted. The money was sitting there and we still got less money. We were designated to get over $200,000 to support our e-waste as an example, and the governor would not sign that. So the Department of Health actually sent that to the governor and he would not sign off on it. We only ended up getting $99,500 because because the Department of Health could actually give us that without the governor's approval. So that's how we got that money. So again, we're already seeing an impact. And we would love to see, as an example, our glass program, our non-high-fi glass program get fully funded because the money was there, but we couldn't get it because of the current legislation. So no, we've definitely been impacted, but sorry, I'm not able to answer you directly how it will impact us in the future because the money was there and we still didn't get the money.
Thank you, George. Do you know what they're using that money for? Or it's just.
Yeah, I do not know. It was my understanding it was just going to go back into the state and general fund to be used for other programs.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely frustrating. I'm still confused, but I don't know that I'll ever find the answer. In 1299, it basically was stopping a special environmental management fund for the Department of Health and having that money go into the general fund. And the legislature would have to decide whether or not they'd give any money to departments. It makes me nervous when we're talking about having an enterprise fund for wastewater treatment, if they're taking away the opportunity to take special fund money from everybody. I mean, there's this huge list of all the special funds that they're garnering any money that hasn't been passed out yet to go into this general fund to cover the shortfall from COVID. Whether the America Rescue, whatever they name the federal program for all the money that's going to come over our way will make a difference and the money will come back. Who knows? I think it's again one of those challenges of how do you get money and use every avenue available. In the director's report, for example, you had you wanted us to press for extended producer responsibility for electronics. And I'll get to you next, Lee. Oh, you had a comment about where the money comes from?
I was just going to comment about the difference between special funds and the enterprise fund. From what I understood, once the money is in the enterprise fund, you wouldn't be able to take that money out except for what it's specifically designated for. Whereas special funds, it's just kind of like another bank account. You just put money there, you can pull it out whenever you want to. So it's up to whoever designated that money, they can pull it out. But enterprise fund, you shouldn't be able to do that, from what I understand.
Okay. That would be good if that's true.
Well, John here, Wilson. This kind of brings us full circle back to what I was speaking to earlier about point of purchase disposal fee, which would be entirely a county function. And you know, this is this is old news. The state has done this continuously to the outer islands because it meets its needs first. And God blesses the child that's got its own.
Certainly the concept of extended producer responsibility is one that was discussed in the solid waste management plan. It's also, I think, one of the things for looking at enterprise fund approaches and some dedicated funding. The biggest issue is whether or not we could get funds from a supplier, whether a manufacturer or retailer, that would go direct to the county and not go through the state. Because if it goes through the state and then gets divvied up, that's where we seem to be losing the money.
Well, the point is that my understanding is as long as it is site specific. In other words, it's electronics, it's the bottle bill, it's anything that is going to have a residual impact. I mean, obviously, you're not going to collect it on a loaf of bread, but
It goes to
anything
the
that is
sewer
going,
eventually, so, you know.
well, yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, that's probably a little less direct, to put it politely, but the wastewater is to me is kind of a separate issue, because you have a much more complex chain of command, more moving parts. Over-the-counter sales, collecting fees at over-the-counter sales is a pretty straightforward thing. It goes to a dedicated fund that is used for nothing else, and it avoids the tampering from afar.
But isn't that, this is Melissa, isn't that what the High Five program has been doing? And yet that money is still being taken from
Well,
those
because
programs?
it's a statewide program.
So you're saying if it was a county-based program, John?
Yep.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
And what I don't know, and maybe that's something for you and maybe Elise to look into. How can we establish basically a tax on goods brought to this island when I buy everything on Amazon?
No. Don't use the word tax.
But it is. I mean, it's a fee. It
No, it isn't. It's a fee. It's a fee with a dedicated purpose.
Fine,
and
but a
can be
lot of
used for
things are
nothing.
brought here by mail as opposed to purchased.
That is an issue that we are going to have to figure out.
Yeah, I think it's an agenda item for the future.
Yeah, most assuredly.
What we can do with the concepts of extended producer responsibility as an island, a county, a little tricky.
Well, I mean,
The paint program will be an interesting one. It's a nice project where you buy your paint, which you tend not to buy from Amazon. Although I guess you could buy anything from Amazon.
You can. Yes, latex paint they will ship.
I was gonna say, but will they ship it? Most places won't ship stuff like that.
Well, the latex, because it's non-flammable.
It'll be a model for us to look at how it works. Certainly it's something that works well on the mainland. But the county in the middle of the Pacific, we've got some issues. Back to the director's report. As I said, one of the things I'm going to be talking to Ramsey about is how to format a kind of a standard template to deal with the integrated solid waste management plan, which was approved at the last council meeting. And unfortunately, there were several comments about how disappointed the council was. And having participated on the SWAC for a couple of years, Melissa, writing that thing, I was kind of bummed. But one of the things that I want to make sure happens is that the priorities that have been set and the recommendations that are in that plan are acted upon by DEM. And I'd like to see a tracking mechanism for what's happening. And we had identified some 6 core actions to be taken, education being number 1, but also reevaluating the contract with Waste Management so that they didn't get paid by how much goes into the landfill, but see if we could turn that around, that they get paid for how much isn't going into the landfill because we're recycling it. I understand there are discussions ongoing on that with Waste Management, and life cycle assessment. George is trying to make it happen. and other items that are on that. So I know there's some work that's happening already that started even before the plan was approved. But now that we've got April, assuming Mitch Roth signs it, to track it and to make sure that it isn't yet another plan that gets put on the shelf and nobody ever looks at it again, that we are going to want to report on what's happening, why it's not happening, and how EMC can help. My 2 cents. Anybody else want to comment or have questions about the director's report?
This is Melissa. I just want to second that, Georgine. I think that's really important, you know, and it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about having all these wonderful ideas, but then they just sit on a shelf somewhere and there's no action that's taken. So I don't know, maybe that's part of, maybe that could be part of the director's report is, you know, updates on, you know, those 6 things that were mentioned, you know, by SWAC and kind of what's happening with those things. I would appreciate that, you know, something like that on the director's report.
Good. Lee, you had some questions you wanted addressed. Are you comfortable with what you understand is going on in your district?
I still haven't gotten any word on what's up.
Okay, what's up? Ramsey?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Lee. You sound so far away. What was his question?
I'm having trouble with Zoom for some reason. I had a question about the Waihinu transfer station. When construction was going to begin, because it keeps getting pushed back and the sign's been there for at least 2 months.
That subject, I know Greg was gonna give an update on it. I know they're working on that transfer station improvement. So George, if you have any update, please, you can chime in, but I know Greg was working on it or is working on it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not able to answer your question directly, but indirectly, the Hawaii Wildlife Fund goes and collects nets from the shoreline. And Waihinu is one of the places where they store those. And we were told to request that the Hawaii Wildlife Fund remove those nets to prep for construction. So that indicates to me that it's going to happen sooner than later because we're having to move those nets out. And they took a huge load of those nets out last weekend. And fortunately or unfortunately, it's nice that we got all those nets off of the shoreline, but there's about half of it left. So they're going to be coming back this weekend to get the remainder of them. So, you know, it's a great program, great successful program. But getting back to your question, I'm not sure of the exact time frame, but it's getting closer because we had to remove those nets.
So work in progress, Lee. Just sometimes you have to go through roadblocks out of our control, but I think the project should be moving forward.
Have you made a decision on whether you're going to try and keep the transfer station open or if you're going to close it and just send us to other transfer stations?
That's also still being looked at, that options. I know George and his team is looking at variable options, but definitely for now, it's going to stay open until we decide what we're going to do. And like I said, when Greg, we're going to continue meeting in-house to make sure that, you know, service continues. If it's going to close, you guys are probably going to go to different station during the construction, but that will be worked out with the division, and we'll put notification so you guys are aware, the constituents are aware of what's being done.
Can you comment, Ramsey, it's Georgine again, about the negotiations you have going on with EPA on gang cesspools?
We still, I guess we haven't heard back from them on the NEPA process, so we kind of waiting on them. We waiting on some items that we are working on house, such as geotechnical reports. So there's some items that we're still waiting on to see what direction that's going to.
I guess one other question, there was concern at the council level about the decision to not allow trailers at the transfer station for safety reasons. And I understand that you are looking at some, what practical options you've got, since everyday people on this island. Tim Richards claimed everybody on this island had a trailer because that's just what we do on Hawaii Island, but I don't have a trailer. But is there something that EMC should do, any communication within our districts about it?
Well, this rule it took effect actually last year under the prior administration. So really technically, it was just the implementation of it. It was supposed to take effect in March. But as the new administration came in, I tried to respond it just to kind of put my hand around the issue and understand what's going on. And I discovered that from a legal point of view, I have no authority anyway to do anything with the admin rule once it's approved. In addition to that, so I requested, because just to confirm the reason for the ban of trailers, which was the safety. So I, for my own sake and confirmation, so we make sure that we're being transparent out there, try to confirm what the first intent was. And we found out from the safety committee, yes, it is a safety issue. And so now we trying to find another, right now we have to go through the legal process. But prior to that, we need to first find out if we could remedy these safety concerns. The safety committee had recommended the redesign of these facilities to be able to accommodate trailers, because they were not designed for that purpose when they initially were designed. The whole idea was, small vehicles comes in, they take their house garbage and dump it into the chute, and people could go on their daily business. But so we're looking at different options, maybe just instead of having some of the sites open 3 or 5 days just for residential waste, maybe take a day away from residential and just dedicate it to trailer, but yet try to modify the site and eliminate the hazards. So if we cannot eliminate the hazards and modify it as cheaply as we can, then we're gonna go back to Mr. Richards and convey the new findings. But our goal is to go on, if we to take a day away, the residents may get now mad because now they got less one day to take their garbage, because now we're going to dedicate it to trailers. So just as a commission, you guys need to know where that's going to hit at, So definitely any comments or any recommendation from you to that topic also will be appreciated, because it's taken one day away from residents just to allow a trailer. And how many people have a trailer? Like you said, if everybody in the island, then it's a win-win. But if you don't have it, Lee doesn't have it, Brent doesn't have it, and multiply that with as a percentage. So if we're looking at 10% with a trailer, is it feasible to take one day away from residents, just allow the 10% to use it. So that's something. And the trailer ban is really not a ban. I mean, they still could go drive to the landfill. We're not saying, you're not going to use your trailer at all. What we're saying is take it to the landfill because that's probably its bigger site. You can move it around. You can do whatever you want to do without creating hazard, safety hazard to the vehicle around you or to the workers around you. So
just like this commission would like to meet virtually, driving to one location on this big island from wherever you happen to live is also a logistical headache. And when we talk about the distributed compost sites and how we locate things in places that'll be both convenient and practical and safe, it's a big challenge on this island.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's why I know when we looked at it, this, I guess when the decision was made last year, it was, really was safety and staff that operate these facilities, that was their number one priority. But like I said, you still get the Hilo landfill, old landfill transfer station that could take it from that side. So yeah, we have 2 sites. So make it a weekend trip, I don't know. So unless you guys could find us money to revise these transfer station and make them actually accommodate these type of vehicles. But that's where the challenge, the funding versus the way it was designed. So versus the distance. I mean, you hit it right on. There's a big distance between locations.
And I think, again, that was something that getting an approach on how to analyze life cycle impacts of the various management programs we have in place would be advantageous. Do we need 22 transfer stations? Do we need just one, or maybe if you want to call Hilo still a quarter of a landfill location? What makes sense on this island? And
you're right. And that's some of the programs that I mentioned earlier that George and his staff we have 5 options that they're going to be looking into. And, usually a rule of thumb, if you are within 30 to 45 minutes away from a facility, that's adequate enough to be able to drive, so do we want to have, transfer station at each corner like Starbucks? No, that's not our intent, because that's where the cost is going to go up. So the idea is, I understand convenient, but convenient comes with a price of service. And we cannot put the convenience and provide the service when we don't have the money. Unless people are willing to pay for it, then we'll be more than happy to build a station at each corner. But yeah, these are the challenges.
Lee McIntosh, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just let you know, I do have a trailer since I'm a landscaper. But from what I've seen, the reason that it's probably become a problem in the last year or so is because the transfer stations have restricted the days. Used to, they were open practically every day, 12 hours a day. And, we could take our trailers in, no problem, dump. There wasn't a line. Now I don't take my trailer at all anymore to the transfer station because there's no way to turn around. I'm afraid I might get stuck, and there's always 10 cars in a waiting line. So, but unfortunately, I don't think there's enough people that would use well, I guess if it's a designated day, maybe once a month or something, you might be able to fill a whole day up with trailers. But honestly, to take one day out of the week, each week for that, you wouldn't have enough trailers to do that, just from what I've seen over the last 15, 16 years I've lived here. But what might be better is if you had some designated areas, like, you said you have a transfer station, or actually you had the dump in Kona, transfer station, Hilo, and then maybe in the other 2 corners of the island, Waihinu being one, have, days of the month, or, 2 or 3 days, maybe 2 days out of the month, where you could bring your plan to bring your trailer in like on a Saturday or something, and people can plan their schedules around it rather than just outright banning it. Because I mean, once you fix our transfer station, there's enough room, you can maneuver a trailer without any problems. So just some ideas to consider when you're relooking at ideas and how to deal with trailers.
Yeah, I mean, that's been under discussion. That's what I'm saying, as even fixing these transfer station, it requires money and funding. And that's most of our challenge really comes down to money, And if you have money, you can do anything. So that's where staff now, they need to set a priority, figure out, okay, do we need to set aside $1 million or more just to enhance these transfer stations for 10% or less of trailer? That, Lee, you're right. We may not have enough value comes in with trailers because, and figure out, and we're gonna ask staff, and we're gonna try to get a bit better number of how many people with trailers, and maybe show, you're right. So we could better plan that one day. It could be a month, not a week.
John here.
Oh, go, John Olson.
Yes. I was on the committee that did the design of the KL transfer station. And we had long discussions about the most efficient way, the most efficient design for a transfer station. And basically, at this point, none of the county facilities meet the standards that were set in the beginning for that. Primarily, it is because it is not a pull-through environment. You have people backing up to the bins, and the last thing you want to do is have somebody put their car in reverse. We went and visited the transfer stations that were in Eva, and in basically West Oahu. And they had 3 transfer stations there, and they were all pull through. And the volume, obviously, that they could handle was far exceeded anything that we have here on this island. And what you have to do is look at the successful design elements of a transfer station. So there's quite a bit of documentation if you can dig up the file that went with the development of the KL transfer station. There's a lot of information there.
Yeah, thank you, John. I guess we could point the finger at you, huh? You were in the commission of the design. No, thank you, John. No, thank you. I think you're right. I've been around this business long enough. I used to design these transfer station, MRF system. I personally did design for these facilities. So you're right. You don't want to have vehicle backing into that, because it's just the time, and when you have a queue line, and you're gonna have every vehicle come in trying to back up and then get into the chute. You're right. It has to be like go through chute. You drive in, you drive out. You don't drive in and try and maneuver. So imagine you're driving in with a trailer, and you're trying to back your trailer in the right spot, and you hold traffic and what have you. So you're right. It's a challenge the way these transfer stations being designed. I visited, and I watched the operation of them. Actually, the one in Kalakaua, same thing. I sat there and said, in God's name, why would they design it that way? Because every vehicle comes in, the other vehicle have to wait for them to maneuver around, go and make the turn, and then back up into the chute. It's just time consuming. And it just, that's what I'm saying. If we're going to redesign, it's going to cost money. So it's, we need to revisit that. I see Rick's hand up, so Rick may have some comments.
Rick?
Yeah,
Gaffney?
I don't wish to comment on this subject, but I wanted to ask the director a question before he leaves.
Good.
The North Kona sewage pump station that was recently announced to be moving forward, the story in West Hawaii Today appeared to include a connection, and the story and the map included a connection from the pump station across Kealakekee Parkway all the way to the wastewater treatment plant. What it doesn't show is whether or not there is a recycled water line coming back from the plant as part of the installation of that sewage pump. Is that in the plan, and can it be added?
Yeah, I think the information, unfortunately, when the article was written, nobody had called our department to get the story because they just took the information out of the environmental assessment report. I'll have Eric chime into that. I see Eric's. Eric, you want to add comments into the design of that recyclable line, the purple line?
Yeah, from the Honolulu Harbor stub outs, we have in our north and south pipeline distribution design a distribution line and actually a double barrel force main that'll hook up besides the North Kona pump station to the Kealakekee treatment plant, but a recycle distribution pipeline from the plant to hook up to that Honokaha Harbor intersection. So it's in the project planning design status right now.
So it's not part of the funded North Kona pump, but it is in the long-term planning. Is that what you're saying?
No, there's actually two projects going on simultaneously: the North Kona pump station and the R1 pipeline distribution design projects. So in the R1 distribution projects design scope, there's a R1 distribution pipeline running along Queen K, and also the force main to hook up the North Kona pump station to Kealakekee treatment plant.
Okay, the other question I have is, given that the process seems to be moving forward, do we have a sense of a timeline of when we can expect those connections to be completed?
Well, the timeline really driven by the grant award. So, you know, we have received a letter from the DEA telling us that it's under consideration. So hopefully we get the entire grant amount of $19.2 million plus or minus. So if we get the grant, at least we have the environmental assessment complete, so we could start jumping into the construction and the connection. So it's really contingent on the funding source. So, and it's kind of hard to, you know, I had a meeting with staff yesterday and I told them to try to follow up with the funding agency to see, you know, at least give us a hint. Where should we, or when should we expect to get a letter from them? So they're gonna keep, you know, in touch and in communication with that department. But like I said, really the project, the whole concept of moving forward with this project is the funding. If the funding is not gonna happen, so we need to start looking at other options to be able to fund this project and start meeting with the communities and the developers and find ways to construct that segment. But let's hope that we get the grant. Keep your finger crossed, and hopefully our staff will be successful in working with our R&D staff and securing that fund.
Okay, I had two more questions. One, the EA that was announced, does that include the return line, Eric, that you just described?
Hello?
Eric, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry, I was on mute. The pipelines you're talking about is in the EIS for the R1 project.
Got it. Okay. And the other question is, apparently Representative Kai Kahele is collecting wastewater projects that he wants to champion as part of the the President's infrastructure plan. Is this project on Kai Kahele's list yet? And if not, can somebody do that outreach to get that started? I don't know what the process is to do that, but clearly he's interested in wastewater issues and wants a list of projects.
Yeah, just to let you know, Rick, we have submitted the priority list to his office, and it was based on a limited dollar amount of $1 million. So this project does not fit within the criteria.
Was that a parameter that he?
Yeah, I think they gave us, yeah, we gave him about, I think Dora could chime in. I think she had about the list of project. They give you parameter that we have to meet, and I think staff worked to select the projects that meet that parameter. And they submitted it.
Yeah, hi, this is Dora Beck, Wastewater Division Chief. Yeah, I did give quite a long list to Congressman Kahele, and the pump station force main project of 19 million was included in there.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Even though that exceeded the $1 million, Dora, cap?
I was advised to just submit a whole list.
Good job.
Yeah.
All right, so now we know we need to bring pressure on Congress and the president instead of on the division.
Oh, thank you, Rick. At least my shoulders feel better now.
Do any of the other commissioners have questions for Ramsey in the 5 minutes he's got before he's got to run off to a cabinet meeting? Okay, then certainly thank you, Ramsey. We'll be in touch. I will be in touch on the solid waste management plan reporting for your next round. And certainly if there are any things that you would like us to help in responding to concerns the council and its committees have raised recently, let us know. And
well, once again, thank you so much. And I like where we hit it with this and the challenges that ahead of us. Also, please understand these integrated solid waste management plan is a living document because now we have also different options that we're going to look into, collection versus 22 transfer station, for example, or other options that we need to entertain as well. Once again, thank you all.
not seeing any other comments. Have a happy cabinet meeting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Going on with our agenda for future action, future agenda items, Melissa's going to get us a draft on getting money for the LCA, although we may be doing that before the next meeting. I believe John Burns will be presenting some information on his list of priorities that he talked with George and Greg about. So stay tuned for the next agenda item and materials. Is there anything else that anyone is ready to predict that they'll be ready to have on the agenda for our next meeting? And you don't need to commit today. If you've got something that comes up, just again, let me know and we'll put it up on the agenda for next meeting.
Hi, Chair.
Yes, Peter.
I have, it's not really specifically related to environmental management, but you might want to take a look at House Bill 1034, and it's going to amend the Sunshine Law if approved by the governor, effective January 1st of next year. So there's some requirements that's going to be added for virtual meetings.
Okay.
What was that number again, Peter?
HB 1034.
Thank you.
And was that passed?
It's passed in final form out of the legislature. It's going to the governor's desk.
Okay. Check it out. Anything else, anybody? All right. The next meeting is scheduled for May 26th. Probably online, probably this Zoom link. And we will be sending it out to you. Again, check the once we get the agenda folder set up, check the agenda, the testimony folder that's in our site. And I'm just reading through the chat in case somebody had said something there. And again, welcome to Carrie and Elise. Hopefully some of the things we talked about have intrigued you, or again, if you've got some other issue areas, certainly representing your districts or your own personal passion. I think that's what really drives a volunteer organization. Pull together information, and now that we've got a place to put big things, we can use that to background other members of the commission, and appreciate that. Also wanted to FYI you that both Ramsey and I are going to be on the Waimea Town Hall meeting May 6th, and just backgrounding them and people interested in our district on what we're up to. I, on behalf of the EMC and the District 9 representative. And if you have opportunities to connect with your district members to find out what their issues are, certainly bring them here to the commission. Don't act like you represent the commission per se, but collecting information is definitely part of your mission, and passing it along to us so that we can act as a group. Yeah, Elise.
Dr. Jean, do you have any recommendations on how to connect with the community?
I don't specifically. I mean, that was one area, as individuals may be part of different groups, volunteer groups, or attending public meetings in their districts. Certainly that's an opportunity. If there are others of you who have found good ways to find out what your district needs are, please share. Melissa?
This is Melissa. Yeah, so down here in our area that we have a Facebook group called Red Road Ohana, and I didn't start the group. But it's been around for a number of years, and I've definitely reached out to that group, and I've asked, community members, like, what are some of your priorities, or what are issues that are important to you? And it's a really good way to get feedback from community members. So if you don't have a group like that, you could potentially create one. I don't particularly like social media, but it is a good tool for these kinds of things. And like I said, I've gotten some really good feedback.
John Olson here. Go down to your transfer station, stand around for a day.
I've done that too. Actually, talking to the transfer station workers is really helpful, and you can get a lot of really great.
And yes, they know how it does or does not work.
Yeah, there's also a chat called Nextdoor, which is a community group chat window, and there happens to be one, a very large one in West Hawaii. I don't know if there's one in your district, but you might go to Nextdoor and check, because I get a lot of useful information from that with regard, like this first place I heard that the trailers were going to be an issue.
Yeah, and there's some wonderful nonprofit organizations. I've connected with Jennifer Navarro. She was on this call earlier, and she submits public testimony. She and Melody created the Zero Waste Hawaii group, and they're super active in the community. And actually, I have an announcement. When I don't think we're at announcements yet, but I do have an announcement. Oh, are we? Okay. Sure. So they actually Zero Waste Group, and I know they just changed their name recently, and I what did they change it to? Anyway, it doesn't matter right now, but they're putting on a sustainability summit May 28th. So it's a day-long virtual event. I don't think that they're working on creating the registration process. So once I have that info, Zero Waste Hawaii Island. Thanks, Senna. That's what they changed their name to. So once I have that link, I can share it with you, either Peter or Georgine, and we can distribute it to the group. So anyone who wants to be involved in that, I think that it'll be a really valuable day of information sharing.
Anyone else want to offer some ways to collect district pain?
Elise, I started off with connecting with the community associations and neighborhood watch and just people that's involved in their community. That's a good start. And then from there, they know people, and then you just use that same chain to keep connecting.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other announcements? Are we ready to entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second, Rick.
From Rick, thank you. Hui ho, and we'll see what we see in the next month. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys next month.
Aloha.
Aloha.
You. 11:37 a.m. adjourn.
Oh, thanks.